You guys are not going to believe how realistic these little Debbie Christmas tree cake ornaments look. We're going to make them in 2 different sizes, 2 different flavors, and stay tuned till the end and we'll do one with a bite taken out of it. So the first thing you'll need is these printable templates. I'll have the link in the description for you and you can just print these out. I printed mine on cardstock, but regular paper will work fine too. So I've got both sizes of the template cut out. This is the realistic size, and then I wanted to make one that was bigger because I know, like for me, I like to put the big ornaments on my tree. So for those of you that like the big, like Candyland style ornaments, this will be perfect. We're going to be making these out of foam clay. So I'm using this Bose foam clay. Any foam clay brand will work, whichever one you like the best. And then we just need to condition the clay and get it nice and pliable so that we can work with it. So you're just going to kind of stretch and knead the clay until it feels like it's nice to work with. So now I'm just going to roll this out with my rolling pin. And we want this to be right around 1 inch thick. The actual cakes are about 7/8 of an inch. The thickness I have here is pretty good. I want to make this as true to the actual one as possible. So now I'm just going to put my template on here, kind of press it down and it'll stick to the clay pretty well. And then I'm just going to cut around it with scissors. And as you do that, kind of pull the clay away and that'll keep it from sticking back to itself. And then I'll just remove my template. And then I'll just kind of fix up any areas that look a little out of shape or need a little shaping. So for the big one, I didn't make it any thicker than the other ones. I just wanted to conserve clay, and this will be thick enough that it'll be sturdy. So these 2 are going to look realistic. This doesn't exist anyway, so it can be whatever thickness we want it to be. Okay, so next I'm going to make a hole in this so that we can make it into an ornament. So I'm just going to take a skewer and just push it through. I'm going to go down a little bit so that it's not just at the very tip, because that's probably going to break off. I'm twisting it while it's in there and it keeps the clay from sticking to the skewer as much. And now I have a plastic straw. I'm going to put that inside of that hole. So I want to cut the length of the straw to about the size across here. And then we're just going to stick that into the hole. And then just kind of push the clay around it. We're going to put some caulk on the outside of this, and that'll help make it more stable. But this straw will help keep the ornament from cracking or breaking. I just wanted to stress the importance of letting your clay dry fully before you encase it in caulk, because you run the risk of having mold if your clay doesn't dry completely. So just make sure you give it plenty of time to dry. Okay, so the next thing we're going to use is some acrylic caulk. I'm going to do a bunch of this because I'm doing my large one with the white as well as one of the small ones. So I'm going to put a good amount in here. If you're just doing like one realistic size one, you could use less. And then I'm going to add some white paint just to make sure I have a nice bright white. Sometimes the caulk can look a little bit gray. So just putting some white in there. And then we're going to put a little gloss Mod Podge. Now there aren't really like exact amounts. You just don't want this to get too watery. So just be careful of that. And then we're just going to mix this all together. All right, so we'll just start with the realistic size one. And I'm gonna start with the back side. I got a little dirt on it. So the back side is just gonna be plain, but it does have frosting on it usually. So I'm just gonna spread this on. When I put it back onto my wax paper, I'm not gonna worry about what the back side's gonna look like. So I'm just gonna put that one down flat, and then I'm gonna do the sides because I'll need to touch the top in order to do that. So go around your straw hole. Make sure you leave it open so that you can put a ribbon through there later. And we want these edges to be as smooth as possible. So what I'm using here is just a little spatula that came with a paintbrush set. And then I'm going to do the top. This is going to be the most important part, is the top. I'm trying to eliminate as many of the stroke marks off of the frosting as possible. Okay, and I'm gonna do the big one in white too, but I'm gonna do that on my own time. You don't need to watch me do two of them. So the next one we're gonna do is the chocolate one. And I didn't even know these chocolate ones existed until this year. I'm gonna start with my caulk. And then I'm gonna use this color Chocolate Bar, and I'm gonna add some burnt umber. If you happen to have the color Melted Chocolate, that color will be perfect for this. I ran out, so I'm having to improvise. And then of course our gloss Mod Podge. Okay, so now I'm just gonna frost this exactly the same way I did the white one. So now before the caulk dries, we want to put our sprinkles on. So for the white one, they use green sugar. You could use green sand if you want to. I have these little micro beads. They came in a set like this with all these colors. So I'm going to use those because they're a little bit bigger than sand, and I think will look a little more realistic. I just wanted to really quickly add on my small one here, you can see the sugar sprinkles are coming off. And that's because I didn't put them on quickly enough after I put the caulk mixture on. So you want to put that on immediately after you spread the caulk on the tree. And you can also seal these in, so you could use something like matte Mod Podge and just put that over the whole Christmas tree on the front side or on both sides. Or you could use a spray sealer like this. This one is gloss. I would use a matte finish, but something like this could also work to help keep those sprinkles on if you have problems. And then the chocolate one has green and red sprinkles. So I have some little sprinkles here that I made with polymer clay. I have a video showing you how you can make those yourself if you want to, or you can buy them on Etsy or Amazon. So I'm going to sprinkle these on too. Now we need to let the caulk dry at least until you can touch it without it messing up. So we're gonna let this dry probably for 2 to 4 hours, and then we'll come back and finish up. So I had some of my white caulk mixture left over, and I just stuck it inside of a baggie, the whole cup inside of a baggie. And then that allows me to save it for a couple of days. It won't stay like that forever, but the baggie will keep it from drying out, and then you can still use it. I also saved my brown one too, so that if I have any spots I need to touch up, like right here, there's a little white spot. So if that doesn't get covered when I put the drizzle on, then I can always like touch up a little bit. I have a piping bag here. I'm going to put my caulk mixture into the piping bag. You could also use a sandwich bag, but it doesn't give you as much control. So I'm just going to push that all the way to the end. So these, I'm not going to pick them up right now because they are dry to the touch. You can see I can touch them, but they're not completely dry. The bottom side definitely isn't dry because it's up against this wax paper. So once the front dries, I'll probably flip them over and let the back side get some air. And then what I'm going to do is just cut a small hole. You don't want it to be very big at all, especially if you're using a sandwich bag. You want the hole to be very, very small. You can make the pattern however you want, but I'm going to try to stick to the realistic look as much as possible. So my first one is a little bit too small. I cut the hole too small in the bag. So I'm just going to try to go over that same spot again. There we go. I got a skip there, so I need to fill that in. And then the corner has like a little bit there, so I'm gonna go there too. And I didn't mean to get it this ruffly looking, so I'm gonna kind of try to smooth that out a little bit. So the faster you go, the straighter your lines are gonna be. If you hold it over and squeeze, it's gonna be squiggly lines. So I'm gonna let that dry completely. Now we need to mix up the red for the white cake. So I'm gonna put some caulk into the cup, just like we did for the other frosting. We're not gonna need too much. I do have the big one to do too, so, but I also wanna make sure I have enough to be able to squeeze the piping bag. And then the red I'm gonna use is True Red by Anita's. We're gonna put a good amount of paint in here because we don't want this to be pink, we want it red. We'll start there, we may have to add more, we'll see. And then the gloss Mod Podge. I'm gonna add a little more paint. It will get more red as it dries, but I just wanna make sure that it doesn't look pink. Yeah, so I think that's looking a lot better. Once it dries, it'll be more red than that. Also, if you have dimensional fabric paint, you could use that instead of this mixture. I don't think it looks quite as realistic, but it definitely would do the job. So the white one has a little bit here at the tip. So I'm going to put a strand there. And then there's a little bit on this corner here too. But like I said, you can be creative with this. It just depends how realistic you want it to look. I'm going right off of a picture, so I'm just trying to get it as realistic as possible. Now this right here is probably going to be a problem, but I will deal with that when it's dry. If I try to do anything with it right now, it's going to make a mess. Now I have the big one. I'm gonna cut a little bit bigger hole in my piping bag since this is bigger. So where I'm getting these skips, I'm just going back in and repairing it. And they have 6 full lines, not including like the little tips. Okay, so all of these are gonna dry at least overnight. Then tomorrow I'm going to finish up. So these have dried overnight, and you can see I have some caulk that got off the edge. So I'm just gonna take a scissor and just trim these little pieces off. I am obsessed with how cute these turned out, and they look like you could just take a bite out of them. So why don't we go ahead and make one of them have a bite out of it? So just choose where you want the bite to be. The hole is right here, so I want to go down from there a little bit. I don't want to have it too close to the hole. So I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife and cut like a half circle basically. And when I do this, I usually do it with like a circle or a heart-shaped cookie cutter, but I wasn't sure if it would go through the caulk or not. So you can try that too if you want to experiment. Okay, so now here's the inside, and I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to kind of like make a cake texture with it. So I'm just kind of like picking at it. And you don't want to texture the part where your caulk is, because that's the outside frosting. So we want to leave that just how it is. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and put the ribbons into the holes. And then that way, once this is wet, I don't have to worry about messing it up. So this is just like the cheap little ribbon that you can get at Michael's. So I'm going to do green for my 2 white trees because I think that'll be a good contrast. We can just go ahead and stick this through that hole. And I have my skewer. So if it needs some help getting through, I can just push it through with that. And then just determine how long you want it to be and give it a cut there. And then just tie a knot. So there's that one. Okay, so now back to this one that we have the bite out of. So I'm going to take a little mixing cup and I'm going to put some antique white into it. And then I'm just going to add a drop of pale daffodil. We're going for a yellow cake color here, so I think I'm going to add just a touch more yellow, maybe one more drop. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty good. And then I'm just going to paint this whole section here. And be careful because you don't want to go over that caulk just on the cake part. I got a little bit on my caulk, so I'm going to have to wipe that off. All right, so next thing we need is some lightweight spackling. In mine, you can see it's very white colored, so I'm not going to add any paint to it. But if yours has like a gray tint to it, then you can add a little bit of white paint and that'll fix that problem. We want this to look like the white cream in the center. So I'm going to put a little bit of my spackling into a piping bag. And this is going to be a very small amount, so just a little bit. And whatever you don't use, you can just put back into your container. And then I just pushed it down to the end. And I'm gonna cut off a small little section here. This is just like a line in the center of the cake. I'm just gonna pipe that right in the middle. And there's the bite out. So once this dries, it won't look glossy like this, and it'll look more realistic. If you haven't seen my giant cupcake ornaments or my mini mug ornaments, be sure to check out those videos. I'll have those linked on the end screen and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I've had so much fun making these little Debbie Christmas tree cake ornaments with you today. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.